Today we're going to go over some useful strategies on how to do a water change and, more importantly, a cleaning for a planted tank where you're keeping discus fish. I want to share with you some strategies on how to do a water change and a tank cleaning in a planted tank with discus fish or other heavy protein eater fish. And so, as you know, it can get very messy. And so I've got some strategies for you. Now, first of all, my friend Gabe Posada has shared with us, if you keep discus fish, basically you keep as many as you like, one per every 10 gallons. You know, if you have a 55-gallon tank, 5 to 6 discus fish. But now, what do you do when you have a 130-gallon tank, right? And it's fairly large. You develop strategies to clean it. One is you don't clean it all at once in one setting, because as Gabe also mentioned, a 20% water change once a week is sufficient. And let's face it, when you're cleaning this tank and you only pull out 20% of the water, that doesn't give you a lot of time to clean the whole tank. So what you do, the best way to do it, is to do it in sections or quadrants. And so I typically clean about half my tank per 20% water change. And that's sufficient about once a week. And then the next week I come back and I do the other side with a 20% water change and half of the tank clean on the bottom. Now, another strategy that I've employed over the years is that if you keep a planted tank with a dirted bottom, that means you have dirt under the gravel, or in this case, Turfus MVP clay bits. I have worm castings underneath for the root systems to draw out nutrients, as well as to get themselves very rooted within a dirt system, as well as when the proteins and dirt of the tank filter through and dissipate down into the soil. That also provides a sense of fertilizer as well, but I do augment with various fertilizers as well. But one of the things that I do is I built a planter in the back. If you notice, I have these rocks holding the dirt underneath the gravel in a planter, and then in front of that is all gravel, or in this case Turfus MVP clay bits. And so when the proteins get dropped from the fish and obviously their own waste, I can clean the gravel thoroughly with a tank cleaner. In this case, I use a Python tank cleaner, and I can get it cleaned pretty quickly without disturbing the dirt underneath the plants. And then I very lightly touch on the top of the gravel or MVP, Turfus MVP, around and in and around through where the plants are. So let's have it. Let's get right to it. When you get your Python tank cleaner, and by the way, it's my favorite, Python sells an amazing tank cleaner. The hose quality is top notch, really good silicone tubing, as well as their fittings, and the pump is tremendous. It just works like it's awesome. So anyways, but what I did is I went ahead and purchased a longer cleaning tube on the end, because I have a deeper tank. So this is the one that comes standard with it, and I went ahead and purchased the larger one. So let's get right to it, and I'll show you how this works. I always fill up the tube first and then let it drop into the tank so as not to disturb. And then I go to my sink in the back and I turn on my sink and start to pump the water. The Python tank cleaner comes with this green pump, and it screws into your kitchen or bathroom sink, and it basically will draw the water out of your tank or obviously fill it afterwards. It has this little apparatus at the bottom. When it is open, it's pumping. When it's closed like this, it's filling. And so that's how it works. Really simple. I have this particular filter on the front of my bathroom sink, and this unit screws right in. If you have a different size, you can use the Python pump without the brass adapter, but they supply a brass adapter for different sink sizes. So you just screw it right in like so. And then you hook your hose right to the end like so. And as I mentioned, when it is pushed up, it's filling your tank, and when it is down, it is pumping from your tank, and you just turn on your sink and it begins to pump the water right out of your tank. So as you notice over here, again, as I mentioned, this side has all gravel, and so I can go ahead and do a thorough cleaning without stirring up the dirt underneath in the planter. And so I go ahead and just the standard way of a cleaning process for a gravel tank, I go ahead and do the same thing throughout, and I do the first quadrant or the half of the tank. In this case, for the video, I'm probably gonna just go over a quarter before I move on to the next process. But as you can see here, we're sucking out all the junk out of the gravel, and we're not disturbing the planter where the worm castings are at all. Now, as you move towards the planter where you have dirt underneath the plants, just barely shake and touch up the top of the soil, and as you'll notice, it'll just pull up the dirt and the viscous and all of the junk as best you can without disturbing the plants. One of the nice things that you can accomplish by only doing a 20% water change once per week is that you don't have to shut off your systems if they're below the water level. As you can see, my filters are running, my pump and my CO2 are running, my heater is still plugged in, and yet I'm able to go through and make a easy water change, not have to turn everything off, just let everything keep running, so long as I keep the water level above the heater as well as the intake on the other side for the pumps, for the canister filter rather. And so it makes it nice and easy. I can go ahead and very quickly do a nice quick cleaning and water change on my tank and not bother the system much at all. All right, so I go ahead and use Prime by Seachem. It's one of my faves. It smells terribly. If you can age your water, say in your garage, and pump aged water where the chlorines have dissipated out of your water, that's the best. But unfortunately, I don't have that luxury. And so I just add a little of Prime, not too much, according to the bottle. 1 capful for each 50 gallons that you pull out. And if this is a 130-gallon tank, then obviously I don't need much at all. So I've probably pulled out less than 50 gallons, so a little bit less than a capful. Another thing that people often ask is, do you need to check your temperature when you begin to fill up your tank again with a thermometer? Now, Discus can handle a pretty fairly significant temperature change, just like in the rainy season in the Amazon. When the water temperature changes, cools down quite a bit, they start spawning. They can handle quite a bit. Now, some of your tetras and others, they can't handle a huge swing, but so long as you're close. And so I mix a little warm water in with the normal cold tap water. I give a feel of it with my hand, and you can feel here and you know what your temperature is generally speaking. So long as it's not this massive change in temperature, you won't harm your fish. Now, in a smaller tank, obviously, you can change your temperature quite rapidly. With a larger tank, it's not going to swing that fast. Also, I have 2 canister filters, and whenever I clean my canister filters, I only do one at a time. And so I'll go through, and on our next video I'll go over a canister filter cleaning and go through that process as well. But I like to do one at a time so as not to disturb the general water table of the tank too greatly. All right, well, we're just about ready. I'm going to go back in the back and turn off my water lest I overflow, as some have mentioned on Facebook. They get busy doing other things like making a home video here, and water spills all out all over the floor. Once you've filled your tank, the best way that I've found to roll up your hose and not have water still remaining is to turn off the hot water, because you don't want to waste any hot water in this process. But you can leave the cold water running and pumping, so that as you begin to roll up your hose, the excess water becomes sucked out of the hose as you roll up the hose and move back towards the bathroom or the kitchen where you're pumping.